Hi, my name is Deborah Sirotkin Butler, and I don't live in the district. I found out about this forum from an online blog, Blue Mass Group.
Yeah.
And my question is for both candidates. As you probably know, in the Senate, every senator chairs a committee. And it's kind of one of the ways I define Senate candidates in any district is to ask them, if you could choose any committee to chair, what committee would you choose to chair and why? And I find that gives the candidate a chance to really explain who they are, why they chose public service, and what, if they could accomplish it, they would most choose to want to accomplish.
Good question.
Mr. Knuuttila, go first, please.
Well, you want me to?
Well,
First agenda. I guess I had the first one the last time.
Okay.
Thanks.
If I had the choice and I was going to be given my choice, I would choose the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee, because I think that although it's a newly created committee and it's a committee that I served on in my first term, it's a committee that is vitally important not only to families but to the economic development of our state. Many people who are suffering from mental illness are very competent, very productive citizens of our society. And given the opportunity, whether it be through therapy or it be through psychiatric or it be through, different levels of therapy and different levels of treatment, they can go to work. They can work. They can live productive lives. I have a bill before the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee to do a pilot program for teen mental health drop-in centers. And really what that's doing is that's paying attention to the transitional age, the kids 14 to 20. Because at that point, you're entering high school, you're in high school, you have a documented mental illness, and really you're sort of the forgotten population. We worry about the children, we worry about the geriatrics, and we don't really necessarily take care of the transitional age. So I think that it's important for people to have access to mental health care. I think it's important for people to know that just because they have a mental illness does not mean that they can't go to work and be productive members of society, and that they need to hide from that. So that's one of the committees that I would like to chair, and if not chair, serve on.
Thank you. Thanks. Great question. And you're going to see a crossing of the road here a little bit, but for a little bit different reasons. I would like to chair the Judiciary Committee because it's what I know. And one of the things that I'm keenly interested in is Ruth Balzer's bill, House 1888. Write it down, because the legislature has failed to do anything with it. And what that bill will do is create a mental health court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There are many other states that have it. Now, as the Special Assistant Attorney General and the General Counsel for the Worcester County Jail and House of Correction, we have a lot of people behind bars that shouldn't be there. There's a sprinkling of mental illness, really, quite frankly, with a majority of the population that is in the Worcester County Jail and House of Correction. They simply wouldn't be there. What a mental health court will do is create options for the judiciary to do something other than incarcerate these individuals that really, quite frankly, have no control over some of the actions that place them there to begin with. That's expensive. But being the Senate chair of the Joint Committee on the Judiciary will give you the ability to enact this very important piece of legislation, or at least send it to the floor of the Senate or the House with a favorable recommendation. And it's long overdue in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that's where my opponent and I and our concerns cross.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jerry Rogish from Leominster.
Nice to meet
I
you.
want to get your feedback on some discussions that are going on in terms of regionalizing public service, police, fire, dispatch centers, public service, emergency management, that kind of area. Would you guys support that?
Mr. Knuuttila, you first.
Great question. Yes, I would. And regionalization in terms of mutual aid already occurs as far as public safety is concerned. But for the smaller communities, what we need to do is expand that concept. I mean, when fires occur in Sterling, Lancaster comes to fill the station while the Sterling Fire Department fight the fires. These mutual aid intermunicipal compacts already exist. But what needs to be done is you also need to regionalize dispatch services. Just in Fitchburg alone, and I was a police officer for 14 years, You need to get the cops out on the street, and you need to keep the dispatchers dispatching. And that can be done if municipalities regionalize. In terms of public safety, that's an important issue. Now, in terms of regionalization for economic development, I went into that already. But we have to start thinking regionally with respect to everything. Fitchburg and Leominster, they entered for a minute into discussions to join up for a regional contract, 2 standalone communities. Now, we're part of the Wachusett Regional School District. We get funding from the state for our regional school systems, Monty Tech. But standalone communities do not. And they entered into an agreement to try, through their buying power, to get cheaper prices, which is a huge expense for busing contracts to bring children to school. But it didn't pan out, but it was a start. We need to start thinking regionally with everything. Everything.
Thank you. Representative Flanagan?
Good question.
To you.
I think public safety, in essence, is a regional issue. We all know that if, a huge catastrophe were to happen, there would be multiple mutual aid situations going on. We know that in Leominster, a couple months ago, we had a very large fire over at one of our complexes, and there were many cities that came in to help our firefighters. So I think it's important that we start to look more effectively into how we produce those services and how we really get those services to the people. When you talk about dispatchers, you talk about the 911 system, those things really can be done regionally. I mean, I think that it would free up personnel. I think that it would certainly be welcomed by police and fire to have additional manpower on the trucks and on the ladders and in the cruisers. But I think we really also need to talk about disaster plans, about what would happen. Post 9/11, we have evacuation signs everywhere you go, and there are plans in place. So I think it's important that our public safety personnel are part of those conversations, as far as the lowest firefighter on the job or the newest police officer on the job. That just goes without saying. I mean, public safety is number one in people's lives because you don't often think about them until you need them. And I think that we need to take a proactive approach to that.
Thank you. Come prepared with additional questions.
There's a follow-up. There's a danger to that question. You want to allow a 30-30?
Sure, if you'd like.
Oh, is that all right? There's a danger to that, though, because what happens if you start, and you have to be vigilant. A community has to be vigilant because and it'll eventually happen, whether it's regional dispatches and enhanced intramunicipal agreements for mutual aid. What you have to be cognizant of and very careful of is that and you have to be vigilant against it, give a community a crutch for not hiring the necessary police officers because they think they're going to have. When I was a police officer in Shirley, when the base was open, when Fort Devens was open, it was the Wild West. It really was. And we couldn't tackle any call unless we got help from air. They couldn't tackle any call unless they got help from Shirley. So what happens is you have to be careful because municipalities will use these intermunicipal agreements to try to keep from hiring the police and fire that they are mandated, quite frankly, in my opinion, for public safety purposes and for the protection of their own citizenry that they should hire.
Thank you. Representative Flanagan, you have about a minute here to respond.
And I think what also goes a long time with that is not only a municipality's responsibility to hire police and fire, whether they're part of mutual aid or not, but to also make sure that their response times are lower. There's no need to have police and fire who can't get there in a fast manner. I mean, I think it's important that we know, going into something like that there are some strong ramifications and that there are some very strong plans laid out as to what the responsibilities are of each municipality involved.